Hi, everyone. So, right now I'm here with Sarah,
Hello.
and we are going to be talking about relationships because we all know that relationships could damage your mental health. Also, just quick heads up, I'm sorry if my voice sounds a little crazy right now. Have a little sinus infection, but let's go on. So, Sarah,
Yes.
what are some of the main reasons you think relationships end up like damaging people's mental health?
I feel like there's a multitude of reasons as to why that can have that effect on a person. You can put a completely sane person, so to speak, like a person that's never had mental health issues before, throw them into a relationship, and then all of a sudden it brings out a different side of you. And it could be not only because you're responsible for your own emotions, but it can also feel like you're responsible for that other person's emotions as well. Like, we've all been there where your significant other's mad, therefore you're mad, like you're irritated because they're not happy or because for whatever reason they're taking it out on you. That can definitely play a part in somebody's mental health, especially if that takes a long amount of time. Being in long-term relationships can also have that effect on people where they could feel drained at the end of the day.
No, I literally definitely agree with that. I was thinking the same thing. Like, not necessarily that, okay, because I understand, there's a lot of people who, have mental health. Okay, I'm sorry, 1 second, quick pause, my dog's scratching at the door. My apologies, everyone. But, no, I literally agree with that. I understand that, everyone, a lot of people have anxiety, but I feel like when we don't, acknowledge the problems that we're having with our mental health, and then we jump into a relationship with somebody because, oh, he makes me feel safe, he makes me feel happy, we start to develop, this sort of, dependency.
Yeah, reliance.
Yeah. And so, we get super dependent on these people, and then guess what? Once they leave, your world literally gets shaken upside down, and you're like, what the fuck do I do now? And I think that's the scariest part.
You can also develop those anxieties while you're in that relationship. You can be a completely secure person on your own and then get into a relationship with somebody, and then all of a sudden you're insecure about their Instagram likes. Why are you liking this girl's pictures? I don't look like this girl. There's no I know there's this lyric that's we can't both be your type kind of thing. And you end up...
What lyric is that from?
I don't know what lyric that's from. But I know, wait, I'm going to look it up right now because it's a real thing.
No, I definitely agree with that. That ties into something more. I feel like that ties into more first world relationship problems where we have this kind of weird idea in our head that relationships are something that we need, you're not fully happy unless you have this relationship. So then we get into these relationships, and then all of a sudden we have social media thrown into the picture, and then you're seeing oh, look at this girl he follows, I don't look like that, and it literally starts to fuck with your head. And I think that's such a big downfall for most relationships is feeling you're not good enough. But then again, that ties all the way back to what I was saying before. If you're not mentally stable or secure with yourself, if you jump into a relationship, that shit could get so terrible so fast.
Yeah, and also you start to seek validation through that other person when you don't necessarily have to be doing that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, I don't know, I understand the whole, a relationship healed me, but there's also a thing called trauma bonding.
Oh, yeah.
So, pretty much trauma bonding is, let's say you just, hold on.
Bless you.
Oh, my God. I'm
Mocos
so
everywhere.
sorry.
Mocos everywhere.
Okay. Well.
Oh, my God. For the people that can't see this, there's a whole glob of spit and mucus that just flew out onto her hand.
Okay. But seriously. So this thing called trauma bonding, pretty much what it is let's say you just experienced a loss in your family, right? And you meet this guy, and he, he's there for you. he's comforting you.
He's
you
like
guys,
your rock.
Yeah, you guys start going on dates and everything, and then like you build this like almost inseparable bond because of the trauma you endured together. Because let's be real, like if you experience trauma, the people around you, I mean, they might not feel it as hard as you do, but they feel it. So when you come to a person when you're like at a point like this, or even like when you're with a person and you start trauma bonding, like you're not healing alone, you're healing with them, you're coping with them, you're using them to cope. It develops such like this terrible habit, and you guys get stuck in a toxic cycle because let's say the relationship gets bad. Because you guys trauma bonded, you're not leaving, and you're only damaging each other's mental health. And it's just like, it's just a cycle. Like,
there's also another form of trauma bonding where you're in a relationship and it's toxic, and that other person's toxic traits start to rub off on you, to where in the future relationships that you do have, if you do gather up the strength to leave, say that person, like whenever you guys would fight, gives you the silent treatment and distances themselves from you. There's a form of trauma bonding where you move on to the next relationship and you start to do that to the next person, even though it's a completely different person. And it's a form of trauma bonding because you start to exemplify the same things they did to you in the past onto a new person in order to feel closer to that last person, so to speak. Like you're bonded through that trauma that they put you through, and it's hard to get over certain people due to like the things that they have like done to you, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know
and
what I mean?
And I also feel like it also comes down to like in regards to mental health, like I keep reiterating, like when you're not in a good place, like, okay, so your brain, just like drugs, when you meet certain people, your brain produces serotonin. Like, it gives you the feeling of happiness, right? So, like, you could get addicted to people the same way you could get addicted to drugs. So, like, going off of that, like, it's kind of like when you're going through a hard time and you meet this one person, they might not be the best person for you, but like they just like drugs are not good for you, and you produce a hell of serotonin. You know what I mean? Like the same goes with the person. Like that person might not be good for you necessarily, but your brain's producing serotonin when you see them.
You think they're good for you.
Yeah, you do. You think they're good for you because they're making you happy, and that's literally not always the case. And like I feel like I hear so many stories, and honestly, like this is coming from a point of view because I watched like so many TED Talks. One of my favorite TED Talks, I was like going through it, and I watched a TED Talk about love. So what this TED Talk was talking about, it was like talking scientifically speaking, the brain. It's called The Brain in Love. So they break down like what's happening to your brain when you're in love with somebody. And like I said, like we produce serotonin and stuff like that. But the thing is that like watching this video, like it kind of like ruins the whole Disney idea of like what love really is. Because once you get down to it, you realize that like there's so many people on this planet who could like make your brain produce that serotonin. You know what I mean? Like it just like there's not just one drug that your brain will produce a lot of serotonin for. It goes the same for people. And I think that's important to take into consideration because like I feel like a lot of us get stuck into these relationships where we're like, oh, like, they're the one for me. They're the only one for me. And, like, you think they're your soulmate. Well, if you want to speak about soulmates, then let's talk about how we have multiple soulmates, scientifically speaking. But I don't know. I really liked that little TED Talk because they explained, like, in depth, like, what happens to the chemicals in your brain. And it just, like, gives you a different perspective about, like, relationships, like, what you're dealing with, what you're putting yourself through. And I don't know. I feel like it's good to hear because, like, once you guys start to, like, understand how your brain works and you understand that, like, everything makes sense. Like, everything you're thinking, everything you're feeling, when you go through a breakup, like, all of the trauma you've been put through, no matter what it is, like, it makes sense. And once you understand like the brain chemicals and why you feel certain ways, it honestly just helps you like digest everything that you're feeling. And to me, that is like so satisfying. Like when I'm sad, I don't like not knowing why I'm sad.
Yeah.
Or, like, if I can't get over someone, I don't like knowing why. Like, why do I, we've all been...
you like to get, like, closure with, like, actual facts, which is something that, like, science gives us is, like, facts and reasoning.
I mean, not necessarily facts, but, like, just, like, you want to know.
Like a reason why.
Yeah. But, like, I know we've all been there where we've been, like, why am I so in love with you? Why can't I get over you?
Like, why am I so upset over you doing this? Like, I shouldn't be upset, but, like, deep down there is.
Yeah, and there's literally always a reason. Like, I just, like, this is the biggest thing, too, like, with relationships, is that, like, there is so much, like, anxiety, tension, depression, like, all of this shit forms because we invalidate other people. And I feel like that's the biggest thing is just validating your partner. Like, the thing is like, I don't know. I guess, like, I'm not that deep into psychology. I'm not going to sit here, like, I have my PhD or anything. But, like, something I have picked up is that, like, your brain, like, my brain makes sense to me. And the decisions I make sense to me. And the things that I'm thinking make sense to me. But when I try to explain it to people, they don't always understand, you know what I mean? But that doesn't make you, like, invalid, you know? Unless you're, like, physically abusing your partner or something. And that's different. Then, like, you're not valid. But I think for the most part, it's just understanding that, like, we're only human, you know? And we could only control, like, so much of our brain.
But I also want to bring up a point that you can validate a person's feelings as much as you can. But at the end of the day, like, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. There's some people out there that are with partners that I've been with people in the past that you give them the validation that they seek in the way that they want it, but they still choose not to accept it. And that can be brought from, like, past experiences, past traumas, or that can just be the way that person is, the expectations that they have. And you need to take it upon yourself to know when enough is enough. Like, there's only so much that you can do until it starts damaging you.
Well, okay, you just brought up something in my brain. Okay, I need you all to look into this. So, depending on, like, childhood trauma or the way you're raised or whatever, you could see, what is it? Like, I don't know, like your emotional partner. Wait, look it up real quick for me.
Isn't it like your inner child? Like, it's like your inner child.
Yeah,
like,
and it'll show you, like, if you're anxious, ambivalent, or whatever.
Yeah, your attachment styles.
Yeah, the attachment
your
styles.
Attachment styles.
Wait, I want to see them. I want to read them to you guys because the attachment styles is literally so insane. Like, when I was learning about this and I found out which attachment style I had, I was like, that makes so much sense. And, like, your attachment style, depending on the way you're raised, could lead you to, like, searching for toxic relationships, healthy relationships. You also have to take into consideration, like, who raised you? You know what I mean? Like, what kind of, like, family dynamic did you have? Like, that might influence the kind of family dynamic that you want or that you're okay with having. Or the type of people in your life you're, like, willing to surround yourself with.
So the first attachment style that we have is called the secure attachment style. And to basically sum it up, it's when a person has a secure attachment style, they feel confident in their relationship and their partner. So they feel connected, trusted, and comfortable with having independence and letting their partner have independence, even as they openly express love. And then they reach out for support when they need it and offer support when their partner is distressed. So that can be brought upon through childhood when their mom or dad feel confident, like they feel confident enough to express their issues or what they're going through to their parents at a younger age. And then the next one is dismissive and avoidant, which is pretty self-explanatory. Like, if you're dismissive and avoidant in a relationship, your partner comes to you with a problem. I don't like how you did this. And their reaction to that is, okay, well, I'm sorry. Like, best case scenario is, I'm sorry, I'll work on it. And then they just never work on it. That's dismissive or avoidant. or you guys actually end up arguing about it, and it's like nothing ever changes. They like avoid it, or they never want to talk about their problems. They dismiss it. And that can be brought upon as like being neglected as a child and feeling like your parents never really supported you in the way that you felt you wanted to be supportive. And then the next one is anxious, preoccupied, which is basically feeling anxious and distracting yourself from whichever issues you may have because you felt like you couldn't go to your parents for that stuff. You felt like they were too busy to focus on your problems. And then the next one is fearful avoidant, aka disorganized, which is basically, I'm too scared to bring up my problems to so-and-so because I'm afraid of how they might react. I know personally, I have this fearful avoidant attachment style, which I wasn't necessarily raised up in, but I kind of went through that through my past relationship. I was scared to bring up a problem with them because I didn't want to cause another argument, or I didn't want to be the cause of another fight, because it was like, well, if I brought this up and we started fighting, it made me unhappy, it made them unhappy. So I'm just going to bottle it up and not bring it up and figure it out on my own, because maybe it's my own insecurity that's causing this problem. When in reality, it could be a little bit of both. You're insecure about something, bring it up to your partner. Don't be insecure about it and try to figure out a way to like handle it yourself, because maybe they do have an answer for you. Maybe they have a reason why they did something, or maybe it is your insecurity and maybe they can shed some light as to why they did that, you know?
Yeah, I think that ties back to what we were talking about earlier. Like, it's just so important to like manage your mental health. I am like, well, I mean, for me personally, like I'm so big on like inner child therapy. Genuinely, just because I feel like a lot of who we are, what we do, what we like, how we act, how we behave, like, you know, like a lot of that comes, I personally feel like, again, like I'm not a degree holder yet, but I feel like the majority of it comes from when we were children. Like they say, like the first 3 years of your life are literally the most important.
Yeah.
And so like, especially when going into relationships, like a lot of how you behave, it's literally not your fault. Like when, like, even if you, like, even, I'm not gonna justify killing, okay? No way, shape, or form do I agree with killing or taking another person's life. But I think it's important to address, like, school shooters, for example. Like, what did they go through? Like, what led them to the point? Nobody, like, wakes up like, I'm gonna kill everyone, you know what I mean? Like, it all comes back to, like, how you were raised, how you were treated, how you're feeling. And that's where I say, like, again, it's not valid to go take someone's life, but, like, everything that you encounter in your life is developing you as a person, how you view the world, how you view people, how you view relationships. And so, like, with inner child therapy, like, a lot of the shit, whether you were bullied as a kid, whether your parents didn't give you enough attention, whether you never felt good enough as a child, like, that follows you. In some way, shape, or form, I bet if you were to go to inner child therapy and you were to start opening up about how your childhood was, without a therapist even telling you anything, you're just going to start to understand, like, why you are the way you are, why you are with the people you're with, you know, why you search for certain things, why you stick around for certain things. And I feel like that's so important with relationships, especially because, like this is what I tell everyone. All of my friends, every time, like, they come to me with their problems, you know, boy problems or whatever, I ask them, like, do you think right now you could have a kid with this person? Yes or no? It's just a yes or no question. And if you say yes, then there is hope and there is light. And, you know, like, I know we're young. Like, I'm only 20 years old. A lot of my friends are 20, 21, 22. I tell them, like, go to therapy. Like, if you genuinely want to marry this man, you want to work it out with this guy, like, go to couples therapy. Like, it literally works.
There's nothing wrong with going to therapy. I feel like society, like, maybe not so much our generation, but I know past generations have ostracized the idea of going to therapy because it makes you come off as weak, like you need another person's help to get you through your problems. But that's not true.
Well, not only that, like, men too. Like,
oh yeah, men especially.
Men don't think that they need therapy. Like, I promise you, we all need therapy.
That's toxic masculinity.
It literally,
like, you should be a man, but that's also brought upon men when they're growing up. Like, boys shouldn't be crying.
Yeah.
Like, we hear that all the time where, like, little boys are crying, and it's like, why are you crying? You shouldn't be crying.
Yeah, and I feel like okay, that's something that I always bring up to my friends. Like, I genuinely, like, relationship-wise, like, I get it, even if the guy's at fault, even if the guy cheats, whatever the guy is going through, and, like, let's not even say just the guy cheats. Like, it could be vice versa. Like, a girl cheats on you, you know, or, like, you know, you're going through something tough, and you feel like, guys, really, like, a genuine question. When you are going through something hard in your relationship or something real personal where you feel like you just need to cry and talk about it, can you go to your friends? Like, can you go to your friends and literally call them crying and be like, bro, like, this is what's happening. Like, I feel like shit. Like, this is what I'm feeling. I don't know what to do. Like, because I genuinely feel like that's another thing, like, with relationships, that I truly feel sorry for men, because I feel like they, like, even if we're not going to therapy, it's important to, like, let out your emotions. And for women, we're so open to doing that with our friends. Like, we'll go cry to our mothers. We'll go cry to our cousins, to our friends, to our sisters. And we could let everything out, you know? Like, you need to let it out. So, like, I guess my question for men is, like, do you guys let it out? Like, especially with relationships, like, when you go through something, do you have someone to talk to? Like, I feel like that's my biggest thing. And that's why, like, I feel like couples therapy is so valid, because you have a person who is helping you both work through your problem.
Yeah, there's a mediator.
Yeah, because I feel like it's easy for us girls to be like, well, I talked to my friends about this and they said that I'm right in this situation. And I feel like men don't really have that.
They don't. I remember when I was going to therapy. I wasn't going to therapy for, like, couples relationships. I was going for my own sake, and for also I went to family therapy. And my therapist during my, like, one-on-one sessions was saying, like, a therapist isn't there to pick sides. Like, if you go and you talk to your aunts about, oh, my mom did this, blah, 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 your aunts are going to be like, well, she's your mom. And if you go to your friends, your friends are going to be like, oh, fuck your mom. She shouldn't be acting that way. Yeah. Your therapist isn't going to say that. Your therapist only knows you as you and your mom. So they're obviously going to, like, they're going to mediate that situation. Yeah. Like, there's no sides to be picked. It's only problems to be solved.
And I feel like that's so important. I feel like it's so important for relationships. Like, genuinely, like, this is my thing. That, like, I literally want to have a whole thesis statement. Like, I want to have a TED Talk about long-term relationships. So let me back it up. This is my theory. So pretty much my theory about long-term relationships is that, like, you know, like, when you get close to somebody, whether it's a friend, like a family member, a, like, significant other, naturally we project our own insecurities and problems and, you know, whatever you want to call it, baggage onto other people. So, like, naturally, if you want a long-term relationship with anyone, there's bound to be a problem eventually, whether it's parenting styles. I don't like the way you don't wash your dishes. I don't like the way you wash your hair. Like, you know, like, there's bound to be problems in a long-term relationship. And that's where relationships become commitments. Mm-hmm. Now, what comes with commitments? Commitment to school. Yeah. Commitment to soccer. You have stress. You have anxiety. You have these random outbursts, you know, like, it's a relationship is no different than any other commitment. And, like, you know, sometimes you're going to wake up and be like, you know what? I really don't feel like giving you all these kisses and love today. I feel like laying in bed and being sad, you know? Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's a hard thing for, like, people in relationships, especially young people, is that, like, like, if I wake up one day and I'm like my friend Sarah, let's say, like, our friendship is obviously a relationship. And Sarah was, like, super high energy and came into my room, and I was like, dude, chill out. Sarah's my roommate, by the way.
Yeah.
And let's say, like, you came into my room, and I was like, bro, chill out. Mm-hmm. Like, just chill. I don't want to be around anyone. Yeah. I feel like it's things like that where, like, I'm valid for feeling like that, but now we have Sarah's feelings to take into consideration. Yeah. And naturally, we're only human. We can't think about every single person, like, your natural reactions, we're not naturally thinking, you know what, before I make this action, how is this going to affect Sarah? Before I tell Sarah I don't want to hang out with her, how is this going to affect Sarah? Like, that's not realistic, you know?
No.
And I just feel like with therapy, whether it's just for yourself or whether it's, like, for a friendship or, like, family therapy, like, that's a relationship. I feel like it's so important that, like, you're getting a neutral perspective of, like, okay, I'm okay with you telling me you don't want to hang out with me, but you snapped at me and it made me feel like this, you know? Because we're not going to sit down and do that. Like, it's so rare that you meet people who are able to really sit down and be like, hey, I'm sorry.
Me.
Yeah, I'm so sorry for snapping at you. Like, we naturally do not do that. And, like, with a therapist, like, whether you're going alone or you're going, like, as a group or, like, a couple or whatever, it's so beneficial because it opens up the perspective of, like, well, how are my actions affecting other people? And how are my actions that are affecting other people coming back to affect me? You know what I mean?
But there's also, like, you can do that where it's like, okay, say you snapped at me and you're just like, I don't want to hang out. 2 scenarios. It's like, okay, you can be with a person that, like, can pick up on that energy and just not take it out on you and be understanding of what you're going through. Like, you're stressed out, you're not feeling good, blah, 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 and just walks away and, like, doesn't hold it against you. Or there's those people that will hold it against you because they take it personally.
But I know what you're saying because nothing in this life is personal. You taught me that.
Yeah.
But granted, like I said before, like, I don't know. I feel like for me it's hard just because, like, I'm constantly thinking, like, well, what did you go through in your life? Like, did your mom ever snap at you like that? You know?
Yeah.
But granted, that's what I'm saying. Like, the thing is that, like, I always see on social media too where people are like, you could find a guy who's gonna treat you better, blah, 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 blah. Like, dude, everyone comes with their own baggage. It literally just comes down to, like, what you're willing to deal with and how hard they're working to try to, like, alleviate that.
Exactly.
And, like, if you have a person who, like, you know, like, you know what, like, they deal with this of me, so I'm gonna deal with this of them, and they try hard to, like, do better for us, I'm letting you know right now, like, despite all of, like, the emotional, like, turmoil that, like, comes from a relationship, it's going to work.
Yeah.
And, like,
you pick and choose your battles, essentially.
Yeah.
Like,
but you also do need to be, like she said, like, you do need to be taken into consideration that, like, you know, we all have feelings.
Yeah,
we
the
are
person
going
you're
through
dealing
stuff.
with, like, you don't.
Yeah, like, I literally, like, I would tell, like people around me for the longest time, like, when I first got diagnosed with bipolar disorder, like, and I would snap at people, I'd be like, I'm sorry, I'm bipolar, like, I'd kind of use, not like as an excuse,
but, like, you would just blame it on the disorder.
I would be like, oh, it's because I'm bipolar, like, don't be mad at me, I'm bipolar, you know?
Yeah.
And then once I started going to therapy, I started to realize, like, okay, like, that's not really the right way to go about it. But, like, we all come into these things. And, like, even with mental health, like I said, like, I do think we should have our mental health under control. Because, like, me, with my bipolar disorder, like, coming into a relationship with a person, like, that's going to, like, spark some stuff, you know?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Like, and obviously, like, you don't have to have your mental health under control 24/7. Like, you know, be perfect, tip-top shape. But I'm saying, like, be aware of your triggers, you know? Be aware of what's going on, you know?
Establish boundaries with that person.
And the least you could do for yourself is try to get an understanding of what it is that you're going through.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think that it all depends on, like, if you are in control of you and the other person is in control of, because there's 3 people, I always tell this to people, there's 3 people in a relationship, even if it's a monogamous relationship. There's you, that other person, and the way you guys are with each other in the relationship. Because I can 100% guarantee everybody listening to this podcast that's in a relationship, everybody in the world, when you take them away from their partner, they really, really, truly are themselves. Like, solely themselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you could be yourself with your partner, but once you take that partner away from you or that other person away, like, we all understand what that is. Like,
yeah,
you're
like
chilling
like,
in your bed and your thoughts in your head.
Yeah, like that,
you know?
silly, like, it's like that saying, like, oh, like, you're my missing piece.
Yeah.
But
I don't believe in that, though. I don't think another person, I never, ever think a person should complete you. Because what happens when that person leaves? Because nothing is for certain in a relationship. Nothing is for certain. Like, there's people that get married thinking it's certain, and then they get divorced. Like, there's nothing certain when it comes to a relationship. And I think that's what the scary thing about it is is like, you never know if they're going to stay with you. You never know if it's going to last forever. If it lasts forever, good for you. Props to you. Congratulations. But you should never have another person complete you, because then you become reliant on them.
And it takes a little bit of value, like, away from yourself.
Exactly.
Like, that's literally, like, growing up. Like, honestly, fuck Disney. Because, like, growing up, I literally used to always think, like, nothing in this life matters except for finding my soulmate and starting a family. And because of that, like, it took away from who I was, and it ate at my mental health. And especially, like my older sister, too. Like, my older sister, like, I literally, like, not in an offensive way, I told her, I was like, I imagine you as a single mom, because my sister is so powerful, she's so independent, and she's so happy alone. But again, like, we all want a family, you know? But I just feel like growing up, like, you feel like, especially as a woman, you feel like if you're at a certain age, you know, we have biological clocks, you know, like, we feel like, you know, like, if I can't meet a man at this age and start my family, I'm less of myself, and I start to criticize myself, and I start to go into a depression, or like if a guy leaves you or a girl leaves you, and you're like, what's wrong with me? Why something's wrong with me?
What is it that I couldn't give them?
Yeah, we're so like hyper critical of ourselves.
Yeah, but like, I want to like backtrack a little bit about what you said about like Disney. There's a sneeze going. Bless you. I feel like men's standard, bless you. Men's standard, and I'm going to bring up a very valid point, so if you guys want to mark this and write it down in your diaries, you totally can. Men's perspective of love and women's perspective of love are very different. Women are brought up watching Disney movies, like, I'm going to find my Prince Charming, and their whole life they are searching for their Prince Charming. Whereas men, on the other hand, they're not necessarily searching for that. Like, I forgot where I watched this. I think it was like a comedy show or something, where he was like, a woman will literally search her whole life for Prince Charming and walk down the aisle with a guy that she's not even 100% sure about. Why? Because he's financially stable, because he can provide for their family, and blase blase. But a man, when he chooses to marry a woman, it's like, she is that woman. Like, men aren't raised to find the woman of their dreams. Men are raised on party, bros before hoes, fuck bitches, get money. Like,
I feel like it's not even like raised, like, genuinely, like,
it's society as a whole.
Yeah, literally is society. You could have parents who do that, like, or okay, like, I like to say, like, you are a reflection of the 5 closest people you surround yourself with. But now that we have social media, it doesn't matter, like, how deep your parents are in your life and how close you are to them. Like, you could be a reflection of people you don't even know present day. And, like, obviously, like, our society is so toxic, like, teaching men, like, don't cry, get as many women as you want, do this, do that. And, like, it's sad. It's literally sad, because you have so many men who, like, just want to, like, you know, like, talk to their friends, like, you know, I love this girl, I have all these she makes me feel good, and then we kind of like shun them. We kind of like shun them, like, no,
you're
don't.
Simp. You're a
simp.
like,
don't talk about
bitch.
that. That's weird. Like, yeah, we talk to guys like that, and I feel like it's so toxic. Like,
it is. Brings up a valid point. I remember we were talking about this the other day, where like female relationships, like friendships especially, we are there for each other on an emotional level, whereas men aren't really there for each other on an emotional level. So when a man and a woman, most of them. So when a man and a woman become friends, and that woman offers emotional support for that man, even though she doesn't see him romantically, he starts to see her romantically.
Yeah.
Because he isn't offered that in his own friendships, or maybe in his own family life, so to speak. So that's why it brings up that argument of like, can you really stay friends, or can you really just be friends? And I think you can, if we offer the right emotional support to whoever it is that we're dealing with. Like, it could be the same way for women. Like, if a girl isn't brought up in an emotional, like, share your emotions, and then a guy is like, I want to be here for you, I want to listen to you.
She's probably like, oh my god, oh my god,
he cares about me. Like, this is the first person to ever care about me. And then she gets hyper fixated, and she ends up suffocating him, because it's like you're so like grasping at straws, and you want to like never let go that you end up suffocating.
Yeah.
And then they end up going away. And then you think that there's something wrong with you because I messed this up, blah, blah, blah. I should have given him more space. Which brings up a topic of, instead of like relationships like couples, we can talk about like family relationships and how that affects us, like your relationship with your mother or your father. Like some girls have daddy issues, so what do? They go, I think the term daddy issues and mommy issues is toxic, but like for people to understand it, daddy issues, then women become jumping one guy from another because they're seeking that male validation.
and not even only that, like sometimes like the whole like quote unquote daddy issues, it won't even be like, that's something that I don't like, is that like we perceive like, oh, if a woman has an absent father, she's, you know, she's gonna be sleeping around guys and she's just gonna be like, you know, hoeing around or whatever. That's so not true. That's not the only way. It also is like
she can grow up like resenting men and just hating
not
men
only that, but she could also grow up looking for men who resemble her father.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Which is where you get into these toxic, abusive, whether it's emotionally or physically, relationships with these men, because the only men who were around you growing up were toxic and abusive. And like it's like this normalization of like what should and shouldn't be in a relationship, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
And like I always like to like bring this up just because like growing up, like I didn't really have my dad in my life. He came in like when I was 7, and granted, like I love my dad. Like my dad is there for me 24/7. I call him for whatever. But like the most important years, I didn't really have that.
There,
you know. And so like my sister's boyfriend, it's funny because like my sister's only 10 years older than me. My sister's boyfriend, like, whenever he would come visit us, I would get so excited, and I'll be like, Rory, like, guess what? I got an A on my test. Or I'll be like, guess how much I saved up? Guess what? Like, still to this day, I'll be, every time I see him, I'm like constantly like updating him of like all my accomplishments, you know? And like, but honestly, like, that's the thing, is that like we just need positive male and female role models like growing up. That doesn't have to be like a family member or whatever, you know what I mean?
As long as you have like role models, so to speak, you know, like a male that's there for you emotionally and you feel safe with, and that goes for like women as well
too,
because there's boys that grow up like with only their mother, and you notice the difference between men that grew up in an all-female household and men that grew up in an abusive, toxic masculinity household.
And it's sad because, like, as much as society likes to paint these men as, like, oh, he's an asshole, he's this, like, I genuinely feel bad for them because, like, you could tell, like, men, like, toxic masculinity isn't just something that, like, women suffer from. Like, oh, like, he has so much toxic masculinity, that's why he treats women like shit. Like, no, men are suffering too. Men are suffering from toxic masculinity as well. Like, they suffer, if not more, than anyone else does.
Exactly. And like they don't feel like they can seek the help. And it's because of society. And like there's also that point where it's like men will marry women that remind them of their mothers. Maybe not,
and
like,
vice versa.
And vice versa, exactly. And it might not be like physically remind them of their mothers, but some men will seek out women that will do their laundry for them, clean up after them, tell them, oh, did you do this today? Did you call so-and-so today? Don't forget that you need to do this, and constantly remind them, like their mother, that they need to be doing something. And that's not their fault. It's
and I feel
how
like
they grew up.
It just fucks with everyone's mental health. Like the men as well. Like, I don't know. I just feel like at the end of the day, everyone, we just all need to find out more about ourselves. Like, whether you're going to therapy or not, like, learn about yourself.
Understand your triggers.
Like, take a step back and look at your family dynamics. Like, whether it's your immediate family or your extended family, like, take a step back and look at your family and ask yourself, like, is this what I want? Is this what I have? Is what's going on in my family what I'm searching for and not what I want? And that comes down to generational trauma. You know what I mean? Like, you know, you could have a family full of people who stay with men who aren't shit, and then you're with a man who's not shit. Or vice versa, you're with a girl who's not shit. Like, we all need to take a step back, whether you're in therapy or not, for your own mental health. for your own mental health. Because I promise you, once you start to understand yourself, the way, the reason why you behave a certain way, the reason why you act certain ways, what your triggers are, once you start to understand all that, it makes relationships and your overall mental health so much better. Because think about it this way, like, let's say you go through a bad breakup, you know, like, I am a person who goes through breakups and, like, it triggers like, because I'm bipolar, so we have manic episodes, we have regulars, which is, like, pretty much, like, you know, you're normal, and then you also have, like, extreme lows, which are depressive episodes. When I lose people, whether it's like an intimate relationship or even a friendship, I get triggered and go into depressive episodes. And for the longest time, I was never able to help myself because at the time, I didn't know I was bipolar yet. And so I would literally, like, there was one time where I think it was like 2 weeks, I lost 10 pounds. And my mom was, like, so scared for me. And I wasn't getting out of bed. I wasn't talking to anyone. All I was doing was going to the bathroom and watching Netflix. And it was so bad. And once I found out I was bipolar, I started doing research. I started to understand my triggers and know myself a little bit more. Now I'm able to, like, cope with, like, the loss of a relationship or, like, relationship problems in general. And, like, even before, like, in high school, before I was going to therapy, well, I mean, I was going to therapy on and off because I went in middle school too. But before, like, I don't know, like, I was just really, like, dependent on men. And I was toxic. I am not gonna lie. I was the toxic one. Going through Instagram followers, share your location with me. You're gonna leave me for this, blah, blah, blah. Granted, I was cheated on, but that is no excuse to bring into your next relationship. Yeah. But as a young person, like, I was, like, constantly like, I'm not good enough, I'm not pretty enough, blah, blah, blah. Like, I always found something wrong with me. Once I started to know myself a little better, love myself a little better, started going to therapy, like, my mental health and relationships and after relationships was so much better. And I think Sarah could agree with me, and I think this is a good note to leave it off of just, you know, love yourself, know yourself.
Yeah, love yourself, love the person that you're with, and it's okay to take space. A lot of people think that, oh, like, taking space, like, if you can live without them, then you obviously don't care about them. Like, no, mental health breaks are a real thing. Yeah. And it does help. There's a lot of couples that have broken up. There's a lot of relationships where I don't talk to my mom anymore. I don't talk to my dad anymore.
And then you come back
and you're so much better.
Yeah, you just need some time for yourself, for your own mental health.
Yeah, and, like, never be afraid to walk away, like, ever. Like, you should be
for your own mental health.
Yeah, exactly, for your own good.
Or the other person's, because if it's damaging you, it's probably damaging them.
Exactly, and, like, one of you guys has to be not the bigger person, but be that person that makes this step. Exactly. And I feel like that's a good thing to leave off this wonderful, beautiful podcast that we're on, is to respect yourself, to respect the people around you, and to always value yourself and the other person, because things can get toxic real fast. And, like, one day you wake up and your mental health is exactly. And, like, one day you'll wake up and be like, holy shit, how did we get this toxic?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, nobody really has an answer for that, but take some time to stay awake. Because it's like arguing, you know? It's just like, we're getting nothing done when we're both angry. So let's take a step back.
Yeah.
And have some space.
Mental health.
Mental health is really, really important when it comes to relationships.
Yeah.
Really important.
But I'm glad we had this conversation, Miss Sarah Bussos.
Thank you.
My lovely roommate. And thank you for everyone who's listening.
Yes. If you made it this far, congratulations. You are now valid. You have your PhD in unqualified.
No, you don't. We're unqualified.
PhD in unqualified relationship advice.
But thank you so much, everyone. And that is it for today's episode.